Okay. I think we've got everybody logged on. Welcome everyone to our last recording of Leadership Leaves Clues for the year. And my co-host Debbie Frapp is out teaching. So I'm going at this alone today, and I'm really, really excited. And I'm really thankful for all of you guys that have sent encouraging comments about the Zooms that we've done. Even though you haven't been able to be here live, we're listening to a lot of recordings, which is great. There's some great nuggets coming out of these. And today I feel like I should just step back and let these two ladies have the full conversation. Caryn Prall, Shelby
Yes.
Ryburn. How many years have I known each of you? Caryn, I go farther back with you than Shelby.
Oh,
we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but wow. Two amazing team leaders, former team leaders that have moved on in this world and earned the right to do great, great things with the opportunities that they've been given. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The actual goal of doing Leadership Leaves Clues was to make this team leader role remind people it's kind of a sexy thing. It's kind of a great, great thing and a big, big opportunity. And, I was one of those people that was in the role for like 16 and a half years, and it led me to my other opportunity. And now there are team leaders that are outliving me in the role, which is amazing, which is great. So that tells you what this is all about. There are people stepping back into the role that came out of it, right? So it's a real, real fun time. And I truly believe that 2023 is going to be one of our biggest opportunities that we've had in the last decade for leaders to step into the leadership role and arena and get some great, great things done and create opportunity for themselves. So the way that we do these calls or these Zooms is like interview format. I told the ladies it's kind of like a podcast, and we're just going to have some fun, and there's nothing wrong that can be said. It's all real and as transparent as you want it to be. And I'm going to ask questions, and Shelby and Caryn are going to enlighten us on some things as we get these questions answered. So let's just do this real quick. Let's do some bullet points. Tell everybody who you are, when you got in the business, just some important things about yourself. So Caryn, I'll let you start.
my name is Caryn Prall. I'm not a Karen, and I've been in real estate 22 years. I work as an operating partner. I'm filling in as a team leader right now because I have a vacancy, and it has been really, really fun and interesting. And then my partner and I are just launching our 9th or 10th and 11th locations right now. I think I'm finalizing an LOI today on a space, and I agree with you, Terry, we're ripe for growth. 100%. I think there's no time like the better, and there's so much opportunity out there. It's crazy. So, and I met you in 2010
at a coaching skills camp.
That's when I was told I was bad on the phone.
My God.
You clearly took that to heart, Caryn.
And the ID. I think he did it. I think it was done on purpose, Shell. I think it was done on purpose so I would get on the phone.
Oh my gosh, you cracked me up. Okay. All right. So where did you start though? Where did you originate? What part of the country?
In leadership as an ATL in Amarillo, Texas. And full circle, I just got to go teach business planning clinic there, and it like sung to my heart to be back there again.
How fun. But you started your real estate career in Ohio, right?
Columbus, Ohio, and then moved to Colorado, met my husband, moved to Texas, moved back to Colorado, moved to Illinois. Yeah, I have been all around the world and back. And that's how I got to meet so many amazing people, including your star guest today, Shelby, and other people that are on. So it's a very fortunate place to be.
I love listening where everyone came from, like whether there was a real estate career in their background or not. Right. And so Shelby, that kind of leads into you, right? So Shelby Ryburn.
So what I know is everybody has a journey, and Caryn had a journey. Obviously, she was talking about hopping from state to state, and I have had a similar journey. I've been in real estate since 2006. But gosh, that's another story for another day. I was on a highly dysfunctional team. So I'm very, 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 very passionate about helping teams build, and that will come back up later. But got out of real estate and went sideways into financial services, which moved me to Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I got out of that, at 8 months pregnant, I was introduced to this whole team leader concept. And then I guess I started as a team leader at Keller Williams, then Fort Mill, now Keller Williams Connected, where Sandra is.
And then we met there. We met during that time.
Yeah,
that was when we
during that time. So I was a team leader there for 3 years, from 14 to 17. And I always tell people, like, I was just dumb enough to like show up and do the job. Like, I didn't really try to get creative. I leveraged my skills because I had become a certified business coach and a certified instructor. So I was really grateful for my corporate experience because I think it equipped me to be successful in the team leader role. But other than that, I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And like, I just showed up and did the job, and we wound up in the top 10 market centers, and had a really amazing team. It was one of those kind of like hashtag no one succeeds alone. We all just put in the effort, and we all had the same vision, and built something incredible together. 3 years later, though, I moved back to California, which is where I am from, because I had had my second baby. So that's another thing. You can have babies while being a team leader and still be in the top 10. I did it twice. And after my second child, I was just really yearning for my kids to grow up around my family. That was really a core value for me. And so we moved back to California. Caryn and I both spent time in regional roles in California. That's also another conversation for another day, but that was part of our journey too. And now in the last 3.5 years, I have been the co-owner of the More Real Estate Group, which is Keller Williams' #1 Greater Sacramento team.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because as you guys tell your stories out loud, there's things that remind me what I knew and I forgot about you. And then there are things that it makes me realize, what your previous experience taught you about this role. So the next question is, it's really probably the first other than introductory. What really attracted you to the role? That's the first part of it. And did somebody tap you on the shoulder, or did you raise your hand? Caryn, go ahead and go with that.
I don't wait for anyone to tap me on the shoulder ever. And so when you're talking about so many opportunities given, I'm like, no, I just go take them. Right. It's just a different mindset. Is I was moving to Amarillo, Texas, in this tiny little horrible town. And I didn't want to sell real estate anymore. It was 2008, 9, 10, the market similar to what we're entering today. And I said, I want to be a team leader for Keller Williams. And I had left KW and worked at CB had bought me. And they said, what do you mean you want to be a team leader? You're a Coldwell Banker agent. I go, no, don't worry about it. I want to be a team leader at Keller Williams. And they said, we don't need a team leader at Keller Williams. We have one office. And I'm like, no, you need me. And so I wrote my own job description and took zero money basically for a year, drove 55 miles each way to work every day to prove myself. So I made it up.
There you go. Forget it. She
Yeah.
didn't let anybody tap her on the shoulder. That's the Caryn I know. Okay. Shelby.
So, it's funny is, again, everybody has a story, and I certainly have my own. I was a college dropout. And if I look back, the only things that interested me were consumer behavior, people, organizational behavior, businesses and people, and leadership. And so that's really what my journey has looked like. And so I was attracted to the team leader role very much not on purpose. I didn't really know of it. I was in Charlotte. I had resigned from my corporate role because I was burning the midnight oil for years on end, and absolutely was part of an organization that said that they cared about balance, but didn't show that in action. And so I was a robot for performance and did very well, and burnt out to the extent that I was having stomach issues and back issues, and then chest pains at 32 years old. And so I decided that there had to be something better out there. So I resigned from that. And then I launched a coaching and consulting company and consulted with that company, and kind of built up a coaching practice. And then didn't get a tap on the shoulder, but got a phone call from a current team leader who said, Shelby, I'm this team leader now of this company called Keller Williams. And I think this role is actually a better fit for you than it is even for me. So I was not interested in working for the man, just to be really clear, because I had done that and burnt out. And so I was like, I am not hanging my hat on someone else's priorities, right? But I took the interview just out of respect for the company, because way back in my dysfunctional team days, I was at Coldwell Banker, but our team got recruited to Keller Williams. So I was exposed to the culture and was really fascinated by the culture and had a lot of respect for the company. So that was the only reason I took the interview. I showed up on a rainy day in November in a trench coat, one that I still have. And I was 8 months pregnant, but I kept the trench coat on the whole time so that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And 6 hours later, like I was just there to like be respectful. I wasn't there for a 6-hour interview, but I took the interview. We fell in love. It was 6 hours later. And at the end, I took my trench coat off and I'm like, surprise. I'm
And
pregnant.
by the way,
But like in that moment, you know, we had defined what the purpose and mission and values of the company and career were. And I knew it was for me in that moment. Right. And so I went and had my baby and then called her from the hospital bed and said, when do I start?
oh my God, I remember that. You know, what's so funny is that one of the questions that we have that you both have really pretty much answered, but I'll let you add to it if you want to, is how does the role fit? How did the role fit your purpose at that time in your life?
Go ahead, Caryn.
A lot of ways. One, I knew I missed KW. Number two, I did not want to sell real estate any longer, period. And number three, I love leadership. I'd worked in leadership in a different industry. So how could I combine all three? And my first interview was about 5 hours with Tim at that time.
Yeah.
And I got to Kellerize the office, right? And it was amazing to realize how the bucket could be filled. It's never about the money. And I want to be straight. I want to get paid what I'm worth, and I will. And I do.
Yeah.
But I don't ever do a job for the money.
Perfect.
So it's interesting. I am a current OP and so is Caryn, and was in a regional role. So having perspective of all of the market centers and how much trouble they have finding team leaders, I think to Caryn's point kind of amazes me, because it wasn't about money for me either, but I will tell you, I did very, very well. I took a pay cut, just to be abundantly clear, but I knew I was in control of the upside. And as long as someone else wasn't in control of the upside, as long as I was in control of the upside, I was jacked up about it, right? Like I was excited because I was like, I can control this and do better than I've ever done financially before. And so it took about 8 months of me being willing to go backwards. And then I exceeded every financial goal I'd ever made before prior to that.
I would second that. I have taken half the salary for every single opportunity to then go to the upside potential, which is betting on ourselves. Yeah. So my base might have been a very low 5-figure number, but I, like Shelby, made a really great income. And when Mark King had called me about leadership fundamentals, he said to me, did being a team leader make you a millionaire? And I said, yes. Right. And it is the path. And Terry, you can experience that, right? Shelby, I know, can experience that. If we just look at what's the opportunities are abundant if we show up and how we show up.
Yeah. You know, just kind of go into a little bit of explanation. We tend to think the team leader role makes us a millionaire this year, today. And what you're saying is the team leader role makes you a millionaire. It puts you on that path, just like an agent going on their path and getting to mega agent and going through the 7 levels, right? That's what makes you a millionaire, but you got to get on the right paths to get there.
Can I add to that? If that's okay? As long as your perspective is, it's not about you getting there. It's about serving others. And when you put that as a priority and the mission and the purpose as the priority, everything else shows up. right? Like I didn't have to worry about getting there.
Mhm.
I just showed up for, to your last question's point, like the mission, the purpose was in such great alignment with how I'm wired and what I wanted and what fulfillment looked like for me, that I got there accidentally because I just kept pouring into the mission, not worried about what it wound up looking like for me.
Oh, this is a great segue then, because there's a mission, and we know inside of every market center who really sets the standard of what that mission looks like, right? It's the operating partner. You both are operating partners. So when you were team leaders and you took this role, what were some of the clear standards that your OP set out for you? Just as an example.
You know, it's funny, Terry knew me and she coached me for a long time and was probably hang up every call, so darn frustrated with me, knowing for 5 years, like I had it in me and I just wasn't doing the work all the way.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say,
Yeah,
Terry?
that's fair. Yeah. All of us like probably did that, but yeah, that's fair.
I did it for an extraordinary long amount of time, where Shelby took her 8 months. It took me 5 to 7 years. And so a standard expectation is transparent calendar, reporting numbers, being open and honest about the experience, and a pipeline. Terry, don't laugh. That is our tag word. I was like, I don't need no stinking pipeline, you know, my 5 years of mischief and disaster.
I'll get that to you. I'll get that to you, coach. Yeah, I'll get that to you.
It's coming. And then, boy, that was a big aha of going from good to great. And then just transparency, honesty, and accountability. And if there's bad news, you're going to hear it from me. And if there's a win, I want to celebrate it. And it's very hard as a high D to remember and remind myself, just check in. Don't call when there's a problem as an OP, foster the relationship. And when I get out of business with people, it's when they're not nailing it and they're unwilling to ask for help. Because I know people like Sandra and Shelby and you and Debbie and so many people that helped me get where I am today. I never stopped asking for help. And I think that's a big misstep that I see in leaders is to me, that's the ego.
Yeah.
So I came in under the 2-10-40 regime.
Yep. Not a bad regime in a lot of ways at all.
No.
Well, I was just going to say perhaps the word regime is harsh, but I think that's what most of us call it. And I want to speak to that for a moment, because when I moved to the Carolinas with this big Fortune 100 financial services firm, I was already proven with that company. That's how I earned that opportunity. And yet I walked into that building, and this was a big organization. They had 10 offices in 2 states. And when I say it, I had already kind of earned my stripes at that company. It was on the recruiting front. I had big recruiting results. And so when I got there, the managing partner of that office was like, Shelby, I want you to text me your activity and results every day. And I was like, what? Right? Like I scoffed. Like I was like, come on, like you just hired me because of my track record. I'm done with that part, you know? And I was very, very frustrated because I'm very independent. And I think a lot of team leaders come from being an agent or have just a very strong sense of independence. And so that tracking element can be really difficult, especially on our pride. But again, what I had to say was, what I had to say to him was, this is for me, not against me. Meaning he is for me, not against me. My layer of accountability and texting him every night is going to get me further than not having that layer of accountability, which is for me. And so in that company, which is a big nationwide company, we ended up being number 1 in recruiting my 3 years there out of 300 offices. And I would attribute it to that, right? So when I came into the team leader role, they were like 2-10-40. It was still more than I was accustomed to recruiting. So we recruited 100% commission folks in that other company as well, but we did not recruit 10 a month. So when they were like, 40 appointments, 10 a month, I was like, what? Like, that's a lot, right? but I just trusted the system and knew that the accountability was for me, right? So I came into the standard of 2-10-40, and that's what I did. Like, I just showed up and did the job. Like, I was just dumb enough to do the job, right? Follow the model.
Yeah.
And it worked for me. So that's what the standard was. And my OP and I, as you know, Terry, are super, super, super close. My then OP and I. My kids, refer to her as Nene and Papa Tony, just like her grandkids do. That's how close we are. But that relationship did not get in the way of accountability. She never let me off the hook. Every Friday we met and I reported my 2 and 10, or, our 2-10-40. So that was for me. And it's what got us in the top 10 too, just like it got us to number 1 in recruiting at the other company.
Yeah.
So that was the standard.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you guys are mentioning, models, basically. Systems, and yet it's also about the people around you, right? So I think behind every great team leader is the ability to lead a really great team, a really great leadership team that are the right people that are focused and committed to the overall mission as well. So what would you say is the one thing that you would do in today's climate, right? Because you guys, Caryn, although you're kind of in the role, what is one thing you would be doing today if you were a team leader that really worked for you then when you were a team leader? What would you tell team leaders to continue to do?
Asking for help. Number 1. Number 2, become a master of the MRA models. Be able to just have a needs analysis and computate the economic model in 3 sentences. Right. And just dialing in is that I have never sold as much real estate as my top agents or top agents I've recruited, but I know how to coach and consult them.
Yeah.
Right. And so just getting really clear on your core values, like Shelby said, as a market center, the direction you're going to go, getting your team on board with you, pour into your staff. That's something that coaching helped with me a lot, is making sure I pour into my staff and go do it anyway, no matter how ridiculous you think you sound or how dumb you look. We coach us against agents all the time, right? Like, no, just go do the activities. It is literally holding you accountable to the activities. And what would life look like if you did it? What would life look like? And getting that chance to dream and imagine. Because Shelby, I'm with you. Like, I had no idea that I would ever be able to have as much income or wealth or whatever I've created. And with the people around me too, which is the most fun part. But you can do it because we're all living proof that it has happened. And so that's where it becomes really exciting. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. I just want to shorten the decade-long timeline it took me to do it.
Yeah.
For everybody else.
Good point. Yeah, I get it. So Shelby, what is one thing that you did well that you would do again as a team leader?
I mean, I think that probably my story is just like sticking to the standard and doing the work. But in addition to that, I think you always have to have a focus on growing people. So to Caryn's point of knowing the economic model and knowing the MREA models, I came in as a team leader who had not sold a lot of real estate either, except for my dysfunctional years prior, 10 years prior. But I was still able to coach people into success through activity and understanding the MREA models. And that enabled us to grow people exponentially. I would say the majority of our recruits were newbies, and we were just really good at growing them because we were a coaching environment. And because that was before kind of the capper focus. And so I think that takes a lot of focus on your own personal and professional growth, like meaning educating yourself to be a master of the business is critical, because then you become a person that people want to follow. And if people want to follow you, they will not leave, right?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I'm OP back where I was team leader so many years ago is because my best years were spent there. And my relationships are deep there simply because I always wanted to figure out what I could do to help them get better. And they still look at me that way. And I don't think there was any magic to that aside from just being a student of the business so that I could show up and provide actual value, not perceived value.
Right. So is there
tenacity too, just never giving up?
That's probably super valid.
No.
And emotional
absolutely.
intelligence.
Uh-huh.
And that tenacity thing will challenge you. Terry was my coach as well, and I was super blessed in that relationship because she kept me level-headed. But she would tell you like 2 or 3 times a year, I would fly off the freaking emotional cliff, right? Like I would stay up at 1 o'clock at night and like write her this super long email where I was just like puking. And she would just keep me level-headed. And that was all I needed to do. And then I wrote the email and we talked and I was like, okay, I'm fine again. But it is that tenacity that's so important. But having a mentor and a coach and a person who lets you throw up and then helps you move on.
Yeah. Throw up and move on. That's it. So if you were to go back and tell your younger team leader self, never do that again, what would it be?
So many things.
Pick one though. Just pick one.
Never allow myself to be a victim in my mindset.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, just blaming a person, an external factor, geography. Like that's why I laugh when team leaders are like, I can't recruit because we don't have parking or we don't have signage or we don't have location or we don't have, I'm like, oh my gosh, there is not an excuse I haven't used. And how much faster would I have been able to provide better things for my family if I had just gotten rid of that?
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. Shelby, what about you?
Mine has a little bit of like emotion in it. And that is for me, like, don't leave the team leader role.
Stay there.
Yeah.
I didn't ask. And now for me, it included a geographic move, right? Like I wanted my baby to be around my family, but short of that, I did not think of it with respect to how I think of my business, right? Like I run the more real estate group and have 20 people on my team. And the conversation on my team is continually, how do I, as a team owner, get enough leverage to live the life that I want? And you can do the same thing in the team leader if you ask enough questions, right? So like, why would you ever want to leave the team leader space when you're growing the largest team that there is? It's an empire opportunity, and you just have to ask the right questions in order to know how to have the same life and leverage that you can have in running a team or anything else. My team leader years were the best years of my life.
It's funny. It's funny that I hear this a lot. And it was including myself. We think we have to chase after, and I do use the word chase. We have to chase after whatever the next thing is on that opportunity map. And I think most team leaders think that next built-in opportunity is being an operating partner. And that's not necessarily the next thing. Why not stay team leader and be an investor in a mortgage company or be an investor in an insurance company? You know, if you're a really, really great high performing team leader that's creating a great life for yourself, you're creating a great life for your operating partner. And more than likely your operating partner is going to make your world bigger. So take advantage of whatever that world is. Don't go after a title, right?
I agree. As a team leader, I knew I wanted to be an OP because, you know, we team leaders, not you guys, I'm sure, think, oh, I'm doing the job anyway. But then you're becoming OP and you're like, oh, it's so much harder. It's so much harder. In that hindsight, and I didn't want to go be a regional director, right? That I didn't have like, I'm going to do this. I'm just not, like, I'm very driven and I'm ambitious, but I don't have like a clear path. Is that what I would have, I never have any regrets. I do have lessons. But I think an OP job, God, just hug your OP. It is the hardest. It's so much harder than being a team leader.
It's not for everyone. I mean, I guess what probably both Caryn and I are saying, and I think we've talked about this personally before, but is there's so much fulfillment in the team leader role.
Yeah.
You don't get any of that recognition as an OP. You just get to have hard conversations as an OP, right? Yeah. And you miss the belly to belly changing lives part.
Yes.
So, but I think that some people come in and they go, oh, I've got to become an OP. That's the thing to do. I totally disagree with that. And yet I came in with that same mindset, right? Like, oh, that's where I need to go. That's the sexy role. That's what everybody wants. And I think we need to stop that dialogue. I think the team leader role is running a huge, massive team with tons of fulfillment, and fulfillment is really important, right? Like success without fulfillment is failure. And that's where you get that. And you don't get a lot of that as an OP. You have to step out of the belly to belly stuff, the changing life stuff, right? So I think that the dialogue at our company needs to be, how do I continue to retain our team leaders? And how does that opportunity continue to look to be the very best opportunity in the company? Because it is.
How do I create a world so big that my team leader never has to leave or wants to leave? Like Pete and I just looked the other day, I'm like, I think we have like 19 companies together in 7 years.
Yep.
Right. And just the growth and what we've been able to do. And that was me stepping out and into a regional role and then coming back home too. So I think that the grass is not always greener, although the experiences are amazing and life-changing. But how do you create the longevity? Because I look at the Susan Beaches, right? 23 or 24 years.
Yeah.
I look at the Susan Miller, I look at Melanie, I look at Diane, like all these people, I'm like, they had an emotional maturity or a better understanding about what was possible than I did.
Same here.
That's huge. That's a huge statement. I mean, I'd have to join in with you on that too and say that that is a big piece. And we're not just saying this to make this role look really great and for everybody to raise their hand, because not everyone will fit. Now, let me ask you this: as an operating partner, what are the 3 things that you feel like every team leader, regardless of where they're at in the country, what are the 3 things that every team leader should have as a priority in the team leader role?
Committed to their, I've been a team leader in markets I've never lived or sold real estate in, right? As Shelby has too.
Yeah.
Number 1, committed to their calendar and schedule.
Okay.
Shelby, what's number 2?
Do the work.
What? Do the work. Number 3, be the driver of all opportunities for everybody in your world. Like Tony DeCello wrote a really good quote today and what leadership is. And I don't have my phone active right now, but it was really profound. And something I thought is, listen, if I teach us in leadership fundamentals, like team leaders, if you're not doing your job, everybody knows. The MCA is doing your payroll every 2 weeks. They know if you're not doing your job. OPs as a leader, how are you leading your team and what's the expectation you're setting if the team leader is not doing the activities that they need to do and the MCA is still making the payroll? What does that relationship look like? Or is it when we do this, we all get this? That's how my MCA is an investor in 3 offices with me. That's how that my agents are investors in title, is that all growth can happen through the team leader in partnership with their team. Like Shelby was saying, it's an allegiance, it's an alliance, it's a loyalty, because I'm not going to love you into failure. Right. And that's what yours did for you, Shelby, is they weren't going to let you falter because they knew the potential in you.
That's a good point. Good point. Well, it's funny because Linda McKissick asked me not long ago, what would you say the characteristics of any great leader are? And I said, they're connectors. If they don't have the answer, they know who to connect to. They're attractors. There's just something about them that you want to go, I need more time with them. Like 30 minutes wasn't enough, or an hour wasn't enough. I need to be with them.
That's good.
And they're also initiators, and initiators are able to say, I might need to ask for forgiveness on that instead of permission. So I'm just going to go with it. Right. Not anything bad, but take initiative. Like that's what we all want in leaders. We want you to take initiative. Right.
If you don't get in trouble, you're not playing big enough.
That's it. That's exactly it. And I always say, if there was anything I would have done differently in my growing up role as a team leader, it would have been ask for forgiveness a little bit more, just go and do it.
Yeah.
So,
play to win versus play not to lose.
That's right. That's right. What would you say to anybody out there that might be listening and they haven't inquired about the team leader role yet, or they don't even know what their KPA is? Like, what would you say if I hadn't raised my hand yet to just inquire about being a team leader? What would you tell people?
I mean, I don't know that it's any different than anything I've already suggested. Personally, for me, it was a very mission-oriented, purpose-driven, life-changing experience. And while I knew that from the interview process, just because of the sheer conversations that we had, I also was just given so much freedom to create the environment I wanted to be part of. And that is only offered to you in a leadership role of that capacity. And so I think that the first question, Terry, is, especially in real estate now in this shifting market, this is an opportunity to evaluate what you're made for, and maybe sit with a mentor and say, who am I? What am I made for? What am I naturally gifted at? And that's not an ego-based statement, but like, what do I do without even trying? Right. Because there are so many people who are gifted in the space that is required to be gifted in for a team leader, who are missing the boat on the coolest opportunity of their life. So I personally think, especially in the fourth quarter, like this is such a great time to evaluate what you're made for. Because I think that, one of the topics I am very, very passionate about is burnout, and it happens a lot in our industry, right?
Yes.
Oh, girl.
Right.
We could do a whole hour on that, or 2 or 3. Yeah.
For sure.
And it's about being depleted. So
That's it.
Yeah. But oftentimes it's because people aren't running in their lane.
That's right.
They are not operating in a lane that is an extension of their gifts and what they're made for. And they're just doing the work or whatever. And so I think there's a lot of people in our business who may not even be asking the right questions and could be experiencing success and fulfillment in a whole different way if they went internal for a moment in this fourth quarter and said, what am I made for? And is that in alignment with who I am?
That's a great question, Shelby. What am I made for?
Just because I can doesn't mean I should, right?
Yeah. We've all been there, done that.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. That's it. That's the 3 things we got over that. I feel like there was one other I wanted to ask you guys. Let's ask, there's some people on here really quick. Let me just see if does anybody have any questions that is actually live with us right now for these 2? If you don't, that's okay, but I want to open that up and be respectful.
I feel like Jesse's going to say something.
I know.
I just want chickens and waffles.
Oh my gosh, y'all, it's so good. I'm sorry that I'm eating in front of all of you.
I'm so hungry.
What was the hardest hurdle for you to get over when you started as the TL? Like, what was the one thing that you struggled with the most, or you constantly were asking for help on? And how did you get over it?
Trying to fix that. Nothing is broken, right? So I want to make sure that we're very clear about that. But trying to do everything at once and saying yes to too many things and not setting a proper boundary around relationships, family, or friends. I would have done all of that differently. And so treating it like a business from day one.
Yeah, I was going to say I needed to give myself more grace in the beginning. And I wouldn't say that for everyone, because, Caryn talked about like leaning into every excuse in the books, and we've all done that. I've been there too. So there's a boundary to what I'm suggesting, but I am that person that's wired to just drive myself into the ground. And how do I win? How do I win? Why aren't I winning enough? Like I just remember asking my OP, like, how do I get to 10? I need to get to 10. I need to get to 10 tomorrow. Right. And what I learned is that there's peace in the system of that. And so I need to stop hustling and start implementing a system behind my work. And I would have had a whole lot more peace versus just like running with my hair on fire.
Well, Shelby, I think that's where leadership versus management, like you and I both had explosive growth, right, in our market centers. And it's like, you're only as strong as your strongest system to support the standards in which you keep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so for me, like, you only have 24 hours in a day, right? Everybody only has 24 hours in a day. And by the way, when I became a team leader, I had a 13-week-old son at home. So that boundary was super important to me. And so for me, the system was 2 and 10, because I knew as long as I did that, even if every other ball that week dropped, like as long as I did that, I still had an opportunity. And so it forced boundaries, which was really healthy for me and gave me peace easily. But you can't do that without every person on the leadership team being part of that. Like,
Yeah.
I believe that every seat on the bus needs to be a 10 out of 10.
Mhm.
Because Sandra was my partner in business, right? And we succeeded together, and my PC with us and my OP with us, right? So I couldn't have had peace earlier if I was trying to drag it up the mountain myself.
Yeah.
How do you avoid burnout? Someone had asked a question, is the boundaries. I didn't have children. I was living away from my husband. So my story I told myself is I have to work 24/7 if I'm going to be away from my husband. Right. And where I would have set the boundary that if you have cocktails with them at work at night, you're going to be expected to do that when they join. Right. So I would have reset all the expectations of me stressing out, staying up late, going somewhere on the weekend, doing everything, whatever it took. But I did it at almost all costs. And that's what I have to stop and help people with, is not at all costs, because what comes first is your life or sanity, because you can't have longevity. And so I would have switched it, and that I only have business conversations during business hours.
That is a great point. I never even thought about what we do with recruits prior to how they automatically believe that's how life's going to be after.
And then they're disappointed, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not being fair. So
That is a great point. That is a great point.
So I would say, boundaries is always the answer, yet achievement has always been one of my highest values. And so sometimes those compete versus intersect. And remember, like, I had resigned from my corporate gig because my doctor was literally like, you have to change your life or you won't have one left.
that's right.
So when I came to work as a team leader, I literally asked my OP day one, when can I get an assistant? And she said, when you're at this agent count and this profit level. And I really appreciated that, because it was not born in entitlement or ego. I had to earn the right to get leverage, right? And getting home to my brand new baby was super important, not to mention that I'm prone to burnout because I work too much. So for 8 months, and that's when everything changed for me, like, I just put my head down to get to that agent count and that profit level. And I earned myself the opportunity to get an EA, and she knows this. And I tell her to this day, she changed my life. She took so much off of my plate that for that 8 months, I wrote down every time I found myself doing like a $10 or $15 an hour job, I wrote it down on one document, not like the Post-it note, the thing over here, the phone, on one document. And so when I found her, I was looking for a high D assistant, by the way, because I needed someone that was wired like me to just take things and run down the field. I also knew that meant we might have some errors along the way. But for me, I needed someone that was driven to complete me, right? And that changed my whole life. She took everything from me that wasn't, one of my top 3 priorities. And that's how we succeeded. And that's how I went home at 4:30 in the afternoon and was done for the day.
You just said something, by the way. Well, a couple things. One is she took it from me. Leaders are looking for people to solve their problems, not to answer their requests, right? I had a leader come to me saying, here's your problem with your launch coaching, and here's the solution. And she wrote up a role like I did, right, in Amarillo. And we kept saying over and over again, she took this, she took it away, she took it away. That's what we're looking for. That was my job as a team leader, was to protect my OP and remove that responsibility, to then earn the right to get more and more responsibility. It is not to lay problems on, it's to remove them and protect each other through every level. I think that's such a big, important piece of it too.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
I just to add to that real quick, if you don't have someone on your leadership team that is asking you, what can I do for you?
Or just take it. Just take it.
Yeah, and there possibly could be you haven't earned the right to be respected in that manner yet, meaning you haven't taught your team that you trust them to take things from you. Because the biggest form of a relationship is creating trust.
Yep.
And the minute you say, I need your help, and then you start giving them things and they start doing them well, they're going to start taking things from you or coming up to you and going, okay, Terry, what can I take from you today? What can I help you with? What do you want? And that's when you realize you've earned trust and respect from your team. And that's not good or bad. That's just start looking for that around you in your
If they're
leadership.
not giving suggestions, there's a lack of emotional safety, right? If they don't
Exactly.
speak up or if they don't push back on you or challenge you, there's
True.
a lack of emotional safety. It's not them, it's actually you as the leader. That
Yep.
was a very, very big lesson for me, is to make sure that I'm creating a space, like it can be funny or not funny, or humorous or not humorous, but if you can create that space, they are going to solve so many problems, because we all have blind spots, and recognizing that blind spot that I didn't know I had and that she was going to do it better, and allowing it. And trust takes a long time. But when I was a regional leader in Shelby experienced this, I would have leaders around call me and complain about their OP, which I might have done with Terry on a couple of occasions, not warranted. And, the first question I ask is, how's your recruiting going? Because until you nail that, you actually don't even have a right to have a conversation about anything else.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Sandra says, how do you help a leadership team already in place know that you are there to partner with them and teamify when they are not your hires?
Whew. It's like inheriting an ALC, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What can I do to help you change your life? And then do it.
Yeah. I can appreciate, Sandra, that you think both Caryn and I have done that well. I'm not sure that's the total truth.
Uh-huh.
And yet, I'm wired to try and help people understand their potential and love their life, because they're maximizing their potential and what they're made for. That's my soapbox, if you can't tell. So, participation is optional. And for me, you set the standard and make sure that everybody knows that this is about living your best life and that their contribution really matters. And they have to make a choice to step up to that. And I think as a leader, you need to be both challenging and supportive, but not demeaning. And so those who choose to lean in because you're authentically connecting them to their best life will lean in, and those that don't might not be the right fit for the bus.
It's the standards. I said this when I was in a region role too. I said, watch, when we raise the standard, the talent will lift.
Yeah.
Right. And as we raise the standards and expectations, those who want it, talent seeks accountability, and those who want it will be like at the edge of their seat, tipping their chair. And that's who I want to be in business with.
Yeah. I think it goes back to the simple fact that people have to know you care. Then they'll learn to trust you once you do what you say you're going to do. Right. So care, trust.
Yeah. I think that's where you always have to check yourself first. Leadership is about having a mirror in front of you 24/7. So if you don't really mean that, they will see through that. And then there's going to be a lack of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it always has to be about them and not about you. And most people want to be part of that type of leadership team.
Okay. So we're going to wrap this up, because this has been, we could go on for another 2 hours. So I'm going to give it the wrap up. Is there, it's interesting because as an operating partner, you've got to be an attractive, believable source for people to want to come to you and work with you, right? Like they may choose to work with you, even if they've never thought about being a team leader. If you're an operating partner, Caryn, I remember when you made your choice to join Pete. I mean, it was clear, like it was beyond, there was no question that you believed Pete cared about you and that he was going to help create a big.
Oh my God, I just got the chills when you said that. It's true. Our values were in alignment, and we just had an MRE agent, $1 million a year, become a team leader.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And people are like, what? Well, her GCI is still on track, everybody. Like it's an and, not an or. But why? Because we can show her a world that all opportunities lead through that role.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, let me save the front. Terry, I just like all my teachers. I'm sorry. I was such a difficult coaching client. I am so flipping sorry. Right?
Apology accepted, but look where you've done okay, I think, Caryn Prall. So
couldn't have done without you. So
thank you. You're a sweetheart.
I think there needs to be more of that. I mean, KW preaches leverage. We're the best at it in the industry, period.
Yeah.
And we need to help more team owners see that wealth and opportunity typically happens through a market center leadership opportunity. And it's an attractive one. And we need to start with one market center at a time, and then duplicate it and duplicate it again and duplicate it again and tell the story, because our market centers will change if we can get that type of leadership in the team leader role.
Well, Shelby, let's think about this. What did you say to me at the beginning of this market about 6 months ago on the phone? You said, I am so excited for this market shift. Do you remember that conversation? I remember exactly. It was a Saturday morning. I remember exactly where I was. And you as a team were like, we're going to double down. We're going to our best year ever. We can't wait. Like your enthusiasm, and you're like, no one teaches and no one's more ready for this than Keller Williams. We are ready to stand down and take market share. I mean, you were just like, it's the same thing. The opportunity I feel as a team leader or leadership role is that time is right now. Like my VA we just knew of a company consolidating. We got wind early. We just created an entire email template, VA sending out, boom, done, book appointments, let's get it done. And we're looking, there's more growth going to happen with KW if we all plug in.
Yeah.
That will happen in the next year than I think will happen in the next 5 years combined. I mean, I
agree. I agree. This week, talking to market centers, it is like an explosion of growth. Like the people that are saying yes, raising their hands, coming to Keller Williams, coming back to Keller Williams. There is a lot of movement this week, and we're not talking new people. We're talking cappers. We're talking, and that's Keller Williams language. I get it, but a lot of people are like, "Hey, I'm interested. That maybe this is really happening. It's not just the holidays. There really is a shift going on." And we've hit that curve where people are going, "Oh, light bulb, I've got to be where I need to be to get the most support I can get." So I think this is going to be a huge year, a huge opportunistic year to be a team leader, because you're going to get to be a part of that big explosive growth that's going to happen.
And
So
to that end, like be the change. Like if you
Yeah.
don't see what you want to see in your market center, like lean in, be the change.
be the
Create-
change. That's right. That
Create
is
it.
exactly right. So guys, thank you so much. And
Thank
everybody
you.
that was on live, thank you. For the people that listened to it on recording.
I haven't seen
Thank
Jessie
you.
for a minute, so it's great to see her again.
Yeah.
Sandra, love you, long time. Hope we get to go back to Africa together.
And thank you, Melissa, for being on and raising your hand and asking questions. Really appreciate that. That is awesome. So Caryn, Shelby, love you.
Love you.
Merry
Love you more.
Christmas. Thank you. And we both probably need to all talk. So
Probably.
message me.
Uh-huh.
Hey. Thanks, Terry.
Hi,
Love you.
guys.
Bye.
Love you.